On behalf of SIETAR Europa and our virtual team, I'm really happy to greet you for this webinar. My name is Joanna Zell, and I'm happy to host two professionals who are really fantastic, experienced people originally from India and originally from Hong Kong. A very warm welcome to Cecilia Louis, who is actually originally from Hong Kong. However, she has enjoyed her upbringing also in Canada, has traveled a lot. Actually, she just told me that we missed each other at the SIETAR Europa Congress in Tallinn 2013. So we are looking to a chance to see each other in person. And Cecilia has got an intercultural also business background. She's a specialist in business development and learning and development. And is going to give us a close-up at building trust with people from Hong Kong. Mithun Mridha, who is originally from India, is based in Paris, in France. He's an intercultural enthusiast, as he describes himself. And he is a fantastic professional who specializes on organizational change and transformation, and also program and portfolio management. Mithun has traveled to 60 plus countries, and those who follow him on social media know that he is almost everywhere all the time. So we are really, really eager to hear from both of you how actually people from the so-called Western cultures can build rapport and can build trust with people from respectively Hong Kong and India. I'm also happy to tell you that I had the privilege and the chance to experience the Guanxi at the best in Hong Kong and the Jugaad in India. So there are two words our experts are going also to introduce during their presentation, that they also give us the glance behind the curtains. So we are very welcome to see so many people here. We have 140 participants from Sweden, from Frankfurt, from Prague, from Dalon in India, Bangalore, Eindhoven, from India again, from France, Germany, Sweden, from Poland, from Singapore, UK, Pune, in India, Cologne, and also from the Netherlands, from Norway, from Switzerland, Yorkshire, UK, Barcelona in Spain. Oh, the whole world has joined us in this time. So the French Riviera, lucky you with the sunshine. Also sunshine in Dublin, great. We have also people from the Netherlands and the US. Wow, so early risers in the US, from New Jersey, from Brussels in Belgium, Oslo, Germany again, Netherlands again, from Russia, a very warm welcome, from Slovakia, from Scotland, from Germany in Munich, Austria, Luxembourg. Yes, wow. And most of the people are writing that it's a sunny day. So thanks for joining also from Ciao dall'Italia. Buongiorno, buenos dias, bonjour, guten tag, dzień dobry. Also the people from Shanghai are joining. So yes, thank you very much. Ni hao to all the participants from China and Hong Kong, of course, in particular, and namaste. I'm handing over to you.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone. I guess there's no need for an icebreaker. Joanna read off where everybody is calling from. So a warm welcome to everyone who, make the time to dial in, to join Mithun and I to share on such a big topic. We didn't realize that it's such a big topic until we got into the nitty-gritty of building the presentation. So since Joanna has shared with us where everyone's dialing from, well, let me extend that welcome. And I understand that on the platform there are SIETAR as well as non-SIETAR members. So welcome everybody. I'm sitting in Hong Kong. Our weather is quite nice, and Mithun is based in Paris. So I don't know what the weather is like over there, Mithun.
Hello, Corona warriors, and hello, everybody, dear friends, and my fellow speaker team and Joanna. It's absolutely wonderful, marvelous weather outside my window. All I can do is look at my window and look at my neighbors who are also on the balcony at the window.
Yeah. So I understand probably 99, 100% of us are doing this from home. So I hope everyone is staying COVID safe, and is also finding a great way to, to combat this self-isolation and social distancing. But nevertheless, we're connecting here online, 150, 160 of us. So today we have, Mithun and I are going to share on the topic of what trust, engagement, and influence is like across cultures, specifically China and India. As I shared a little earlier, it's such a big topic. In the interest of time, Mithun and I have made a safe assumption that most SIETAR members and also our international professionals have a basic understanding to what both China and India is like, and we're gonna that enables us to kind of dive deep into giving you some tips and recommendations as to how to build trust, engagement, and an influence in these cultures and with your teams and bosses and also business counterparts, give you some ideas. And from my perspective, I will also shed a light on some of the more creative ways during this COVID challenge, how you can do it differently. And at the end, Mithun and I will each share a client experience to kind of bring everything together to show everybody the importance of cultural values that play into business decisions. We encourage everybody to enter their questions into the chat box throughout the webinar, but we will wait until the end. We'll have about 8 to 10 minutes to answer some questions. So if we can, we would appreciate your patience to wait until the end so that we can, answer some of the more common questions. So the timeline, and thank you, Joanna, in letting us to start on time. Mithun and I are going to do a joint opening because there's some overlapping cultural values between both China and India. And then before we branch off into each of our respective presentation, and then we'll share client experience towards the end, and then we'll come to Q&A and wrap up. Mithun has a very important client meeting that he has to leave sharp at 2 p.m. So hopefully both of us will be able to wrap things up by 2 p.m. I think, this is rather self-explanatory. Both of us are going to go over the important cultural values and customs that play into the business world and the benefits and challenges around the 3 topics that we're going to talk about. And each of us will also offer tips and recommendations, and I will shine a light on the COVID challenges. And Mithun, would you like to say something to your part, or
Yes.
are you okay?
So from my side, again, as Cecilia explained, I will be talking briefly about the Indian values, the challenges, the decision mechanisms, what kind of cognitive styles are prevalent in India and in Indian teams, some distinct qualities, contexts, and how we can build transparency and cultivate safe environments. So I would like to end with a few tips which can be used for all international teams for being high performance team in an international context.
Okay, so we just, for fun, we thought we would, insert this polling question. So trust, engagement, and influence, the chicken and egg scenario, which do you think comes first? So just pick one of those words and into the chat box so that we know, roughly where everyone is at with those three elements. And Mithun will read off the answer.
So trust, trust, trust. We have trust, we have some engagements. It's still trust, trust, engagement. And we have a very interesting answer. We have chicken as an answer. I like it. Engagement, engagement. Oh, we have egg as well. So very good. Trust, chicken. So influence. So I would say we have more trust. We have one feedback. Engagement is an outcome. And we have also a gray answer. It depends from the culture. I like it. Thank you, thank you, Kinga. Shared vision. They complement each other. Open space for real partnership. And it also depends on the context and the actors. Thank you very much. With this, I let Cecilia continue.
Thank you. It sounds like trust won over. Okay, so as we all know, there are benefits and challenges around trust, engagement, and influence. So what is the magical formula? And what is the benefits around, why is it so important that, companies and managers care, and what are some of the challenges? So we've all heard that global companies and leaders have challenges around building trust. We hear that all the time. And company staff engagement are also universally low. We also hear, sure, the more engaged we are in our work and with our clients, the happier we are and the better the results. We all know the benefits, right? But when you add on the cultural elements, it doubles or triples the challenge. So, because we have cross-cultural understanding, communication challenges, cross-cultural management issues, and behavior and personality. Even if it's not within a multicultural environment, we get those all the time. So as I mentioned earlier, both the Indian and the Chinese culture, we have overlapping cultural values. So I grew up in the West. So I've been back in Hong Kong for 19 years. And let me tell you, I think over the years, I have to gradually evolve from a very task-oriented mindset to a very relationship-oriented mindset. I think within a typical organization where you have deadlines, where you have interpersonal challenges, I don't want to generalize, but there's a tendency for us to only focus on the project deadline, the outcome. So we forget to say please and thank you. We forget about people's feelings. But within the Chinese and the Indian culture, I think everybody on the platform realize Guanxi or relationship matters. As an independent consultant, even more so, because as we deal with people, we understand how important referrals and connections and that conversation, asking people, especially during COVID, if they're okay, if their families are okay. So that's why we want to set the stage to allow people to understand that there's there's an overlap between the Chinese and the Indian culture. Okay, so allow me to go into my part of the presentation here. So I think, everyone knows how big China is. If you look at where Beijing is and look at where Hong Kong is, we're in the south. And, for anybody who thinks that Chinese everywhere is the same, it's like saying Europeans everywhere is the same. So that, we can have a general understanding of what Chinese culture or custom is like, but really in order to connect with somebody, you really need a lot more than just cultural knowledge. Okay, so let's go right into some cultural values and customs that play into the workplace and business decisions. And many may already be aware that a lot of the traditional Chinese values are based on Confucianism. The bit about faith and respect, loyalty, serving others, and patience, harmony, humility, hierarchy, Guanxi, relationship, and diplomacy. Those are all important cultural values. And many of these are actually embedded within the Chinese culture, whether it's at work, at home, socially, and across every corner of society. So what's important to the Chinese culture, and again, I'm generalizing here, and what makes Chinese proud? As many know that a lot of business decisions are made at the dining table. So, if you have any Chinese colleagues or do any business with China, a lot of time it's overeating. And we all know family is important and education is important. Material ownership, it's also important. The cars one drives, the house that they live in Hong Kong. Sometimes people will ask you where you live, keeping in mind the district you live in. They already know roughly where you rank. And of course, the social element, Chinese is quite social. And of course, we're not going to include, everybody and everybody, but in general, you get a sense that a lot of socialization and business decisions, it's over food and over social gatherings. And what does the culture, or who do, great majority of the Chinese, does the society look up to? I think Mithun and I was, as we were going over our content, we also recognize that, yes, professions, credentials, and awards, those are important. I think many parents, we, not me, but many Chinese parents or Indian parents, we would wish that our children would study medical or become a teacher, professor, a lawyer. Those are more prestigious careers and professions. And paper credentials is important in the Chinese culture as well. And then, the whole society looks up to successful leaders and thought leadership. In China, the people in mainland China, they look up to their President Xi. They've done well. And then Li Ka-shing is very known, and he's one of the, among the top tycoons in the world, and also in Asia. And we have the late Singapore leader Lee Kuan Yew, who was very much respectable public figure. Now, if I may, there's a slight difference between the people from Hong Kong and people from China, and I'll make those point out those slight variations as I go through the PowerPoint. In Hong Kong and in China, there's no difference. We're influenced by the West, so the high society, the fame, and Hollywood, those are, in young people's or, seasoned people, all the same. So we look up to those high society people. And in Hong Kong, we also have the Miss Hong Kong pageant. And I think that's, it's probably the same everywhere globally. And many people are brand conscious, whether it's in their material ownership or in the university they go to or their children hope that they go to. I wanted to point out, Mithun and I were having a conversation on how stereotypes have evolved over time. Now, when I came back to Hong Kong about 20 years ago, I think there was a culture where people, instead of eating healthy or exercising, they buy into this fad that they can go into a spa and, you know, slim down, or, you know, very much that they hope that they can take the easy way out and buy their slimness and Asian beauty, whatever you call it, without doing much. But the times have evolved, and there is a very big fitness culture in Hong Kong now. So it's good to see that that is coming into our culture. Again, I want to, you know, I'm from Hong Kong. I've also have friends from China, and a slight distinction that, you know, in my personal observations is that because, you know, everybody is aware of, you know, the British colony, Hong Kong was a British colony until 1997. So many people from Hong Kong, they seem to not, their cultural identity is not as strong as those from China. China is, you know, they raise their people to be very patriotic. They have a very strong cultural identity. In Hong Kong, people tend to take work first and then family second, whereas in China, it's the opposite. And again, there's always the exception. So, you know, forgive me if someone, you know, is not in that situation. And we're also very, you know, there's a tendency for us to be more outcome focused as opposed to relationship focused. You know, many families are dual income couples. So, and then the ratio of children, it's also less nowadays, 1 or 2. So, you know, young people are, you know, they're more, you can say that they don't have to rough it. They don't have as much hardship because China has only opened up in the more recent years. So if you can put yourself in their perspective, if you never have that kind of freedom to pursue opportunities outside your country, and when that door opens, you would want to do your best. So my personal observation is that my mainland counterparts, they have a much more better learning attitudes. They have stronger aspirations and clear direction. And they, just because, you know, it's like COVID, you know, we all miss what we want. Once, you know, our freedom returns, we would want to exercise harder, you know, and socialize with our friends. So it's the same analogy. Okay. I think everybody is aware in the Chinese culture, Chinese New Year and Mid-Autumn Festival, those are key festivals that actually play into business decisions. So during Chinese New Year, roughly around January, February, you want to be mindful not to have deadlines, or if you're you know, ordering something from your supply chain, not to impose deadlines or have deliverables. Try and steer away because it's a big holiday, and a lot of people would want to go back into their homeland to spend time with their families. And the red packet tradition of Chinese New Year, that's also important to observe, whether you're a boss or your peer. If you're married, then you have to, you know, dish that out. And Mid-Autumn Festival, if you have business vendors, moon cakes, then you need to kind of exchange gifts, or there's company dinners or lunches. Another couple of customs that play into the business decisions are funerals and weddings. So if you have a boss, you know, who's getting married, then rest assured you're going to get an invitation, and you're almost expected to play a part or contribute into the gifts. Funerals as well. You know, whether you want to buy a wreath for the you know, either a colleague's family or a colleague, it's expected. So from my personal observation, the 3 key values that really impact business decisions are hierarchy, phase, Guanxi. You know, hierarchy is in ranks, you know, seniority, your organizational structure, and then phase, whether you're giving, losing, or saving, that all plays into it. And Guanxi, as I mentioned earlier, it refers to your social networks, your friends in high places, your, you know, and, you know, Mithun has connected me with some of his friends. So there is that introductions and referrals. And If you pay attention, if you follow politics, that's actually a good way to understand international relations. And faith and relationship are connected. So when you praise someone, you're obviously building that relationship. And when you, when you dish out criticism or feedback, uninvited, you are unnotably going to damage that rapport. And these values overlap and spill into personal and commercial decisions across society. I won't go into big, in depth. So I just want to, feel free to take a snapshot with your mobile and review it later. But how these three important values actually play into trust. So on the left column, we have a hierarchical organizational structure, which is the Chinese, and then flat organizational structure. That would be your Americas, Australia, the typical Western societies, and I will let you take a look at that. I'll pause for 1 minute and let you have a quick read or take out your mobile and do a snapshot with that before I move on to the next one. Now, many people I have interacted with kind of lean towards people rather than task oriented. And as I mentioned earlier, I think task orientation tends to be more with people within an organization where deadlines, stress, interpersonal issues. I've worked for a good 20 some years before I branched out to be my own boss. So that observation also came from that corporate environment. And as we, work by ourselves, which many SIETAR members are, there are other, practitioners or coaches or trainers, then you come to appreciate the importance of relationships in a service industry. Okay, let's move on. Now, if you understand what a culture or an individual values, if you flip that, the behaviors that are considered disrespectful, and I say this to Chinese, I'm not saying to every culture, okay? So if if I already told somebody that these are my values, but you don't pay attention, you don't listen, and you turn around and you do the opposite, obviously you're gonna damage that relationship. So things such as, you embarrass someone by openly criticizing them or offer feedback when you're not being asked, or you display some very strong emotions in front of other people, or, dining is important in the Chinese culture. So table manners is also, it's part of that. So learn it. There are important facts and knowledge that's worth understanding before you interact with somebody, especially the Chinese culture. I mean, I'm Chinese and I find it challenging myself, and it took me a long time to understand these. So, remember, whether it's personal or cultural values, respect them, and you will earn their trust. Now, engagement, it's to me anyway, it's much easier than building trust. And I bring those cultural values back into the background. When you engage somebody, you need to understand if there's anybody on the line who's in communications or marketing, then you understand that, different audience requires different engagement strategy and methods. So if we look at a culture, there's also different generations. So the younger generation, whether it's India or China, obviously they're more tech savvy. So you want to think digital. And then gaming and the monetary, the Chinese culture is quite extrinsically driven. So anything that's wealth related, monetary related. So think along that line. And the mature generations, that myself included, I think we would appreciate the personal touch, the one-on-one phone call, the invitation cards, or the one-on-one meetings. Now, whether, it doesn't matter what generations you're from, I think everyone will appreciate being rewarded, whether it's, in our culture, you reward somebody within a company environment, you provide training and education or prizes or gifts. You know, Chinese teachers and parents that, you know, we tend to reward kids. If you get an A on your test, you know, when you come back, I'll give you this prize or give you pocket money or what have you. Recognition for team performances is always appreciated. It doesn't matter what culture you're from. And then, and you know, the Chinese culture, you know, we do a lot of connections over food. And then there's that birthdays things. So as practitioners, I also, you know, have taught in the past and being a trainer and teams, I hear this all the time. You know, Westerners tend to have a challenge in engaging Chinese audience or an Asian audience. So here are some of the tips. So in my experience that I find that, you know, you want to extend those open-end questions, not like, do you like your food? You're only going to get a yes or no answer. Or how are you today? You're only going to get, oh, I'm fine. So if you want, you know, to engage in a quiet Asian, you want to share more. You know, I remember when I was teaching or training in my early days, I find that warm-up time is a lot longer because I have to share more and then engage in the extroverts or social, the talkative ones in the audience. And then the introverts or the more quiet individuals, they see that everybody is chiming in and then they will eventually come around to it. So again, feel free to take a snapshot of this. And I think it, you know, with patience and understand that, you know, the quiet, the less self-expressive individuals, they do need a bit more patience and time. And as a culture, we have not been raised to, you know, to be talkative, to be loud. You know, we've been raised to play the humble tune, not to talk much about ourselves. And then now it kind of, you know, it's a disadvantage for us as we enter the workforce. And for coaches, you know, small talks to understand your client's cultural conditioning and upbringing, I find that to be very helpful because of the nature of coaching. If you deep dive into a sensitive topic, that may not, you know, you may find that that's a challenge. So in general, as I wrap up the engagement portion, you know, engage from somebody else's mindset, not our own, and also what motivates them and what interests them, and understand the culture and the subcultures as well. And then just tapping into the attention, interest, and the preferences of your audience, not yourself. And of course, there's also like, I like to, in addition to culture, I also like to bring psychology into this. You know, there's that individual you're trying to connect, and you know, there's this extrinsic and intrinsic. You know, we're all driven differently. So if you you know, take a pause, and as I mentioned, I think both Hong Kong and China we've always been Western influenced. So you know, the U.S. and Hong Kong has also have some influence onto our China counterparts. But as time evolves, and many of you have probably paid attention to our political unrest and all of that, you will come to realize that there might be a shift in the coming times, that you know, the Western influence may just be shifting away. So if you look at, and I apologize that I don't have a female figures here, in the interest of time, I just pulled up a few figures and they tend to be male. So if you look at, I think universally, if you look at how, what influenced you, and if you look at the figures here, you know, there's a common matrix among these gentlemen here. They're all successful, they're all wealthy, you know, very wise and business smarts. So, you know, think about the people, think about yourself. If you want to shine a light, if you want to influence your team, what might you need to do? And so the wrap up for the influence is, I won't go into trust and engagement as we already did, because trust is all about you know, who you are and why should other people trust you. So more or less, you have to work on your you know, your you know, making sure your words and your behavior are aligned. And then engagement is much easier because it's all about channels and strategies and tactics. But influence is more about, I think if you work on the trust, the influence will naturally come. You know, if you think about what who you look up to, you know, usually it comes back to, oh, they're credible and trustworthy, they give back to society, and they're authentic and transparent. So my advice would just be, you know, be yourself, know what you want, and define your own success, rather than, and Hong Kong has a big culture of people pleasing. You know, as the manager, you want to please everybody on your team, but that doesn't always work. So I'm going to shine a light. How am I doing with time, Mithun?
Cecilia, yes, thank you. Thank you very, very much. Very, very interesting. I'm afraid the COVID challenges are for another webinar because
Great. No,
yes,
that's
this
fine.
is
That's
really
fine.
very, very interesting,
Okay.
and of course triggers a great discussion afterwards.
Yeah.
My
No
suggestion would
worries.
be that
Yeah.
also, you know, Mithun can have the chance also to dive deeper, so to say, and
Yes.
show also the challenges and also the possibilities regarding the India culture, that we also skip the COVID challenges
Yes.
and
Okay.
switch to India. Is it okay?
Okay.
Perfect.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
So allow me for 10 seconds more before I switch over. So if you think about what I said earlier, trust before engagement. But COVID, if you haven't had a chance to gain your trust from your people, engage to trust. So that's would be my wrap up on the COVID. Okay. And I will switch over to you too.
So welcome back, and from my side, I can say that India is one of the four ancient cultures which have a more who have a written history of more than 3,600 years. So it's tradition everywhere. But when you go on the streets in any small town or a big city in India, you'll see that it's modern. At the same time, there's a lot changing. And since our topic today is about trust, engagement, and influence, trust is actually, for me in India, it's a currency. It's like a bank account. Whenever you are interacting with Indians, you are either taking money out of that account, or you are depositing money in that account. And it's everything counts. And it's actually in the trust account, it takes a lot of time to put your deposit and become rich. And it's extremely easy to lose all of it in one bit. So let me go to the Indian values. So there are lots of important values. I can't go through each one of them, but I can say family is extremely important. It's a group culture. People see each other in first as a group, as a family, rather than as an individual. So all decision making is born from the group identity. Relationships are important. Status is important. It's very subtle. People won't tell you about the status, but you can see it in the interaction. And it's a bit like one of the games which you have in theater, where you go back to ancient times and you give people a role, queen, king, and you can always see, like, people don't say what their status is, but it is somehow reflected in the actions and reflected in the behavior. And you need time to understand what is the impact of status in your relationships and in your business interactions. You need to respect your hierarchy. You have to respect people who are elder to you. In a business meeting, you always have someone who is an elder guy or woman who will start the meeting. You have to be humble. Spirituality is deeply embedded. Also with spirituality, I would say there is a lot of superstition. So people do believe in a lot of superstitious behaviors, karma, which is a balance of what you do, good and bad in your life. You have to be hospitable. So in India, we say that the guest is a form of God. So you have to be well treated if you go to India as a guest. You have to care for others, and education matters. So what's important to Indian culture? Um, Initially, gone are the days when mustaches used to be considered that's what is the best, most important thing for men in India. No, although we do have the person here you see in the photo who has a who is in the Guinness Book of World Records for the longest mustache, but their education is extremely important. You can see Indian Institutes of Management, Indian Institutes of Technology, they have been ranked over several years among the top technical and business schools in the world. Some often say that it's much more difficult to get into these schools rather than top Ivy schools in the US. And I guess because of the statistics, number of applications and the process and the quality of the questions asked, it is really complicated to get in there. The society, which was very spiritual and is also more evolving, what is important? So money is becoming more and more important. There is more materialistic behavior seen. You can see that India does have also the most expensive house, Antilla, which is worth more than $1 billion US in Bombay. So you do have a liking for material success, but at the same time, it's a very award-based culture. Awards are important. So each company has several contests. Getting an award, and it's considered very positive in an Indian environment. And a bit similar to what we saw with China, professions like doctors, engineers, and entrepreneurs, these are important, and something which is unlikely, which comes at the same level, is cricketers. Cricket has been like the top sport in India, and somehow the stars from the world of cricket are also considered almost like gods. So you can understand that they are followed, they are being read, as much as people read about the business successes like Ratan Tata, who is the chief of the Tata Group of Industries, or you have more younger people like Sundar Pichai, who's the current CEO of Google, and you have many more successes of the Indian community living in India and abroad, who are leading major companies. So festivities like I'll talk about two major festivals which are celebrated all over India. They're Diwali, which is a festival of lights. You can see fireworks, and something which is very typical for this festival is that there is a muhurat. This means the auspicious moment. So businesses will wait for that moment to make decisions. The stocks will go up or down based on those decisions. So all in a few seconds or minutes. So you have to see that businesses will definitely have a big impact. Marketing decisions and stock options will change after the date of the Diwali. So it's not only family gatherings and cultural, but it has a very much more impact to the business world. And same is Holi, which is a festival of colors. You can also see each region has its own list of festivals, and they are equally important. If you need to plan any business meeting or any business activity, don't forget to take into account the Indian calendar. Some customs which can play an important part is don't be surprised as a business associate if you're invited to a wedding of a colleague. That's very normal. 400 invitees is a small wedding, 1,000 invitees is an average wedding. So entire groups of school alumni, office colleagues, entire villages are invited, and that's absolutely normal. So everything is very big. India is big, so the birthday celebrations are also big, and the cake smash ritual is very common. People love buying extra cakes to smash on the faces of others, and this happens in office and in private celebrations. So think about it. If you are doing business with Indian teams, you have to have some time dedicated to these social gatherings, they might have impact on your projects. So decision mechanisms, you can see in India, people decide, the decisions are at many levels. So they're, as a hierarchical society, of course, the decisions are made at the top. But you have to understand that if you want your project to be successful, you have to have the decisions at many levels. You have to also let all levels in your project organization have the decision, have the autonomy, at least share at their level, and you need buy-in. The reason is, if you don't deal at each level, if you don't have the buy-in from everyone, people might accept the decision. There might be a global decision, there might be a contract which is signed, and still people might be going in all other directions, and you might be feeling that, hey, my project team is like headless chickens who are running in all directions. No, it's just because probably you did not take enough time to have a buy-in and make sure that everyone is aligned. So cognitive styles in India, how Indians organize and process information. So it's very deeply tied to the fact that from a very young age, rote learning is very much encouraged, traditional associative thinking, which is something schools develop the initial learning on. And this continues also in the professional schools like engineering, medicine, and law. And even if people become professionals, this basic way of thinking is very much related to the associative thinking, and very different to the outcome-based or meaningful experiential-based learning that you have in most schools in Western Europe and in North America. So don't forget how people think. If you are trying to work with others, that's a part of knowing the other person. In India, we not only do stretching exercises on the playfield, we also stretch and manage in companies in everyday behavior. So for someone who likes everything planned and everything very detailed, I think that there might be situations when you might become a bit surprised or overwhelmed by the stretch and manage in the meetings, in the reports. But you have to know that each country, each culture has its own way of getting to the success. And if you want to have success within an international team, especially with an Indian contribution, you have to understand that you have to use it to your benefit and not be blocked with it. Indian managers are extremely fast learners. They're resilient. Resilient means they're one of those managers who can bounce back from a failure very fast, much faster than people in other countries. And they're extremely competitive. That means Indian managers will not only do what is asked to do in their company, they'll be always open to what's going on outside their company. They'll be observing. And all this is because Indians grew up in a very competitive environment from the childhood. So this stays as a part of the integral part of the behavior. The group behavior is observed in a lot of decisions. So people tend to have a group decision as a group. But you can see the much younger managers, they're extremely autonomous. They love having making their decisions, going towards their goals. So you might find a bit of a kind of a split personality, as in sometimes you might feel people are more behaving as a group, and sometimes they are very much individualistic. And this is actually something that you have to observe, that they might be group oriented most of the times, but don't forget that Indian families are becoming more and more nuclear families. People are trying to have more and more individual space in this thinking. So it might not always be group oriented. Indians love technology, and that's why I say these are weapons of mass distraction, because people are using always the latest version of technology available, laptops, cell phones, but at the same time, technology is not always bringing something good, because you might be totally distracted the whole day with thousands of messages being received from the WhatsApp and other social media, and also other reasons for stress could be just lots of noise, long travel routes from the office to home. So you have to understand what level of stress your Indian team might be in when you are looking for inputs. I wanted to talk something about also the management from an Indian lens. I strongly recommend you this book called Business Sutra by Devdutt Patnaik, who really compares Indian management to the mythology. So he says that Indian mythology, if you read the Ramayana and Mahabharata, so the two epics of Indian mythology, with all the million gods, you can really have a really interesting examples and also explanations to what modern business behavior in India might look like and why it is so. So you have different lenses which are used by Indian managers. So with this philosophy, you have the belief. You start with a belief. It's called the 3B model, which has been developed in this book, Business Sutra. So belief comes from gaze or darshan, guna, which is the personality, varna, which is the mindset, and bhav, which is the feeling. So the belief is telling you that my hunger comes first, my hunger matters first. And then belief leads you to behavior, and behavior is actually the battleground where you are working, so where you get your investment or swaha, and then behavior leads you to the business, and business is actually the prosperity which you are trying to trying to attain. So does Lakshmi walk your way? It means, does goddess Lakshmi or goddess of wealth walk your way because of this business? And then you say tathastu, which means the let it happen. In Sanskrit, it means the return on investment of everything that you have done. So think about it. What hunger matters to your team first, and what behavior or what battleground your team should be working on in their business, and how this behavior will contribute for them to get a return on investment. And that's a step-by-step behavior that you need to understand if you want to understand Indian management. For building trust, you need two types of trust. You need cognitive trust, which is more knowledge-driven. It means you are relying on credentials, the competence of others. You're relying on the roles and responsibilities which are clearly defined. And at the same time, you have affective trust, which is more emotion driven. So you have to know what is the level of mutual support, what amount of work is being done by the others. Are other people caring? So how much care, how much is the perception of concern is extremely important in trust. In my years of experience on working on international projects, I have seen that people mostly lose themselves in the part which is management, which means who, when, what, which is understood in the processes. And this is mostly taken care of in the operations and execution, especially when you have a team like a very different culture like India happening. So you coming into your project picture, you shouldn't forget the leadership part, which should start straight from the beginning. You have to spend a lot of time on the why, on the how. You have to know the vision and people. You have to set up a strategy. So you need to be a leader as well as a manager straight from the beginning if you want this project to succeed. Some tools I can recommend you is an empathy map canvas. So this is really to understand what are the pains and what are the gains of the person with whom you might be working. You can use an ally strategy map, which is really in a transformation project. You have to separate the allies from the opponents, and you have to really know who is going to help you to attain your objective. You have to do a stakeholder map and analyze whom you need to manage closely. So all this will help you to find your level of trust. So are you more at a distrust level, or are you at a trust level? Are you having a trusted in relationship, or are you having a distrusting relationship? So this is finally which will matter for the success of your project. I can also say the three things which are really important is aligning your interests. So interest of the team from other countries, and then the interest of the team from India if you're working on a cross-border project. If you have if you can maintain a situational security, if you can maintain a shared predictability and integrity between the team members, that's what will build transparency. And then you have to build a safe space where people can make mistakes. They're not afraid of being judged, and you can give feedback in the way the team can expect, and that would lead to a great engaged team. So to finish with, I can say you have to invest in time to find engagement. It might take up to 2 to 3 years of work with an Indian team, share information and the big picture, why, how, why, what, delegate meaningful work versus unwanted work. If you want engagement, give things to do which are really important, align your organizational growth, HR practices, and talent sourcing, and align goals with measured and standard performance. Some 4 things that come to my mind for a global mindset. So it's flexibility, acceptance, empathy, and curiosity. And with that, I would like to switch to the client experience, and I would like Cecilia to continue on that.
Cecilia,
Joanna, I think,
yes,
yeah.
we've got 5 minutes left. And
Okay.
I've got here plenty of wonderful questions, actually, which makes me think that maybe it's really a good idea to have a follow-up so that I forward the questions to you, and that you also have the chance to answer the questions in the written form, and we can simply publish them on the SIETAR Europa website. This is something that is really cool, because then this way you would also have the chance, you know, to spread your knowledge. You've got so much to say. You've got so fantastic examples. It would be really a pity that, you know, that only 1 or 2 questions are answered and the rest not. And this is something that we need to consider in terms of time issue. So at this point,
Joanna,
yeah.
I scroll through all the questions. They are, and I thank you, everybody. They were more complimentary. But the real questions, and there's only one for India. Maybe I can get Mithun quickly to answer it. It's very general. I didn't see any deep. Like for Chinese, there's only like 1 or 2, because they, you know, some of them are repetitive. Would that be okay?
Yeah,
Joanna?
please.
Yes, we
Yeah.
have 3 minutes left.
Okay.
So right
So
now, 1 minute for Mithun, 1 minute for Cecilia, and
Yeah,
then we are
so
going still to have a poll.
Yes, and the question for me too is, how do Western and Eastern business owners, how are they perceived by local Indians?
I think the perception is something from that comes from both sides. And at the beginning, I think people are more skeptical at the beginning of the collaboration. At the beginning of the collaboration, people are extremely judgmental. So you have to understand that both sides are judging in each other. And from the Indian side, it's extremely important. Should they trust you or not? They're actually looking for triggers, looking for ways to understand if they can trust. And once this trust is built, it's only after that that you will have true collaboration on any project.
Yeah, thank you, Mithun. So Cecilia, 1 question for you and 1 minute for you.
You know, as I said earlier, these 2 economies are huge. And, you know, I see questions now, they're coming in, you know, they want to know within both our respective country, it's so regional. How do you get to understand the different regional cultures? So that takes a long time. And the one common one that came up for Chinese culture is the face. You know, some people was asking, and then there's another one, how do you engage quiet? I think I already mentioned, you know, share first and then ask. And then if you want to seek a balance between the talkative and the quiet, you just, as a facilitator and a teacher, you're going to have to, gain some experience and how to navigate that conversation. For the face, if you equate that as pride and ego in the West, how would someone embarrass you?
Yeah.
If for people who don't have quite a healthy ego, then they would take it personally. So you would equate that, with face. Yeah.
Yeah, thank
It would
you.
be a good idea, Joanna, that we also record some of the questions, because
Yes,
after,
exactly. So
yeah,
this was exactly my offer, because it would be really, really a pity to hurry up right now. Thank you so much for your wonderful presentations. Extremely informative, really lots of knowledge and wisdom packed in this 1 hour. And to all the participants, I would like to ask you to fill in our poll right now, so that we have 3 questions answered here regarding the value for the practitioners, also the comment of the topic, and also, of course, the effective online presentation skills in both cases. Thank you very, very much. I really, really love the dynamics of this webinar, when, it was one slide after another. Really, really good job. Regarding Mithun's recommendations and also books, one more to be added. Also, the Patanaik, the best mythologist in India. And yes, the decoding Hindu mythology. So maybe something also to add.
yeah,
For all our participants, please stay tuned with SIETAR Europa. Make sure that you don't miss our next events. So on May 8th, we've got the cross-cultural coffee break with the theme storytelling in the intercultural programs for leaders. So make sure you can make it on the 8th of May at 11 o'clock. Very, very happy to host it. And we've got a May webinar on the 20th of May with Katrin Lichterfeld, dealing with accent, identity, and culture. It's at 6 o'clock Central European time. So we are really happy to see you there. There is the recording of this webinar. So for those of you who want to watch it at your pace, you are very welcome to visit the YouTube channel by SIETAR Europa and to watch the recording. Thank you very, very much to both of our presenters. Thank you very much to all our participants. And thank you very, very cordially for joining us today and also on other SIETAR Europa events.
thank you, Joanna.
Stay
Yeah.
healthy.
Thank you.
Stay
Bye.
tuned.
Yeah.
Take care.
Yeah, please feel free to reach out to Mithun and I on LinkedIn. I understand there are a lot of questions, and we apologize that it's such a big topic.
It's really, really very complex, so it would be great to follow up simply in the written form. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, Joanna.
Stay healthy and stay tuned with the SIETAR Europa activities.
Thank you, Joanna. They're still coming.